Welcome back to another episode of the Minot Business Podcast brought to you by Bennett Creative Media. I'm your host, Easton Bennett, and on the show today, we have Travis Johnson. Travis, how's it going?
Pretty good, Easton. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm super excited to have you. Before we get into the actual questions, if you guys are enjoying our content, do us a quick favor by rating and reviewing our show. It's a small act, goes a long way in helping us reach more listeners and bring you guys exciting guests each and every week. All right, Travis, let's hop into it. So good to have you on the show, first of all. For the people that don't know, what do you do? If you had to give them the elevator pitch, if you're at a bus stop, what are you telling them you're going to be doing?
So I am one of the owners of Unmanned Operator drone services here out of Minot. We are, I would say, an industrial drone solutions company where we're not a typical drone company where we're doing, residential real estate and all that. We do industrial solutions for like oil and gas companies, commercial stuff like that, construction, where we go out and we create basically digital twins of a site.
Okay.
And then we go and then our clients take that and use it for their building process or whatever they need.
Okay.
Each company we do stuff for, it's always different. They always have different needs, and our idea is to fulfill those needs.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna dive into. I like the digital twin. I think there's one other thing, 360 site. I think you call it or something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty much our most common service, I would call it.
Okay.
Site 360 is
Site 360. Yes.
Is our version. It's just our service.
Yeah.
Is what we call it. And that basically is a full 360 view of your site from anywhere in the world, basically.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the drone stuff first. So let's talk about the startup. You said it's just you have another founder. I didn't know that. So
yeah,
you guys started this. Maybe give me the origin story of how Unmanned Operator started.
So Unmanned Operator the thought of it started probably a month before COVID. Okay.
Great timing.
Yeah. Great timing. I was working in oil. I've actually worked in oil for 10 years prior to this. And the COVID came as we're right about ready to buy everything.
Yeah.
Right. We're about to start the company. We're about to buy all this stuff. COVID came and we said, okay, we need to stop.
Yep.
Okay. So, during COVID, I actually got my license. And
Part 107, for the people that don't know, you need a license to be able to fly a drone.
Not necessarily.
For commercial purposes, right?
Yes,
is that what
commercial purposes, you need a Part 107 to get paid to fly, basically. If you don't, it's expensive.
Yeah. The fine is more expensive than even what you're probably going to get paid.
It's like $10,000 a day.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So during COVID, I got that. And I started watching actually 51 Drones.
Yeah.
Which was Russ, who you had on here not long ago.
Yeah.
And the funny story about 51 Drones is that I had no idea he was from Minot.
Yeah. Russ, if you guys have seen that episode, I think he might have been episode 51.
Okay.
Was he or maybe not?
I don't know.
Okay.
I have no idea. But so I'm watching one day and all of a sudden he's at Trestle Bridge doing something and I'm like, what is going on here? Like, am I seeing this right? Is there another trestle bridge like this somewhere in the US?
An exact replica.
Yeah. And that was the day I realized he was from Minot. And I've never met him. But he kind of got me into the drone industry.
Okay.
As far as what I want to do in it, I don't want to do what he does. He's a creator. He's got this awesome setup, but I don't like that kind of thing. I like the oil side of it, the solution side of it.
Okay.
Using it as a tool, not as just a media maker, I guess.
So something that actually moves the needle for a business. I mean, you could take photos and video of something, but what is that accomplishing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as far as 51 Drones, you said Russ kind of got you into the drone hemisphere or drone atmosphere, whatever you want to call it, ecosystem. Were you always interested in drones, or how did that come about? When did your interest come about for drones?
My interest came when I bought my first one. Ever since I was like 5 or 6, I loved remote control cars.
Okay.
Like I broke every one of them that I had, and I'd get one, I don't know, just about every Christmas.
Yeah.
And I'd break it because I was destructive with it.
Yeah.
And like by the time I was right before high school, I had a gas powered RC car.
Okay.
And that thing went like 50 miles an hour. And I was driving it down the street, and it lost connection to my controller.
Yep.
Hit the curb and just exploded.
Oh no.
But I would say RC cars did it for me.
Yeah.
And then
You're like, how can we get these in the air?
Yeah, exactly. So I bought just a tiny little drone, and playing with that, I'm like, I want to do this for a living.
Yeah. Okay.
And being in oil, I'm like, I don't want the 10 years I'd already put in.
Yep.
I didn't want to work for a big oil company anymore because it just gets too corporate now.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just not for me. But I'm like, nobody's doing this. What if I could use a drone to change the industry? And that's what we're trying to do.
Okay. So we're going to get into the thought process behind wanting to change the industry, right? Yeah. So what was that transition like when you were like, okay, I really enjoy drones. I'm in the oil industry. What was that transition process between, okay, maybe I should, because are you still working in the oil industry, or are you just doing unmanned operator?
I just do unmanned operator.
Okay. Yeah. So talk to me about the transition from, I think now it's time to take the leap of faith to let's do this drone company.
So after COVID, kind of everything starts back up, right? Oil's now profitable.
Yep.
I guess. I did some work for another company, and that we're not even going to talk about that because it was a bad experience, because I have a business degree and I didn't have a contract.
Yep.
And
that'll get you.
It got me. So
I think everyone goes through the beginning of a business, some sort of contract issues where it kind of bends them over a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was super, super hard for me. And, that almost broke me on that.
Okay. Was it just not a payment thing, or?
Yeah, it was a non-payment thing. And it was just really emotionally hard to deal with, because I did all this work and I didn't get paid for it. Right.
Yeah. And
I was super excited, and then you hit the wall. Right.
Yeah.
And that was tough.
Mm-hmm. But I'm sure it was one of your first clients too, right?
It was.
Yeah. So you were probably like, this is awesome. I'm finally getting paid to do something I enjoy doing, and I can have fun with it. And then.
Yep. And I was a subcontractor.
Okay.
So after that, I restructured my business.
Okay.
Because I had a different partner at that time. And the new partner, his name is Chris Heidelberger. He actually owns Blackwell Electric.
Okay.
They do oil and gas electrical stuff.
Okay.
Chris has been a friend of mine since college.
Yeah.
Probably 2010-ish.
Okay.
And so I came to him with the idea of, and actually going back pre-COVID, me and him were going to partner on this before. And
okay.
After COVID, he was kind of like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I did this work, and I kind of proved to him that it could actually work.
Yeah.
And so me and him went in 50-50 actually, which is kind of weird, but it's nice at the same time because we're both in it half.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is too, is that I get to use, now I get to use his support staff.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I'm terrible at billing.
It's something you got to get used to for sure.
It's absolutely awful. And I cannot say enough about his support staff, because they are just awesome. And so it's really nice this way. So,
what do you think a lot of people go into business? Like, I think a majority of people that I talk to, they're like, I want to start a business. They go in and they think, this is going to be awesome. I know the creative side or the service side of things, but not a lot of people know the back end of things that go into it, whether it's tracking your taxes, stuff you need for taxes, your expenses, your income, the billing software you need, the invoices. Do you think that's kind of a misconception people are missing?
Oh, absolutely. It's absolutely like as soon as you get it, say you get a job, your first job, right? And you're done with it.
Yep.
Now you're like, what do I do now?
Yep.
And for like oil and gas, you need all these other things in play too. Like they're called master service agreements.
Okay.
And they're hard to get for a reason, but you have to have one of those to bill. Otherwise.
And that's just if you're in the oil and gas industry.
I'm sure it's in other industries too.
Okay.
But it's basically paperwork saying you have all this insurance.
Okay.
And this is how you're going to bill. This is when we're going to pay you.
Yep. Okay.
This and that. A lot of times it's 90 day.
Yeah.
You get paid after 90 days. So that is also kind of a big thing. It's like, they're not going to pay me right now. What?
It's annoyingly long.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's a huge thing that I had to adjust to because, I'm thinking the world works. Everything's like now.
Yep.
And it's not that way.
Yeah.
At all.
It's a lot more drawn out than you think it is.
Yeah.
That's one thing I realized. And even usually my like invoice when I send them out are 30-day payment terms. But I've had clients request are like, oh, we only do 60 or we do 90. And I'm like, man, that's long. Because usually when I get an invoice, I just pay it right away. It's paid within the week. But I guess there's probably a lot more corporate steps to go to when it's a bigger company.
Yeah. Yeah. And we work with some of the biggest oil companies in the world.
Yeah.
So, it's understandable.
Yeah. Makes sense. You'll give them a little bit more leeway, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about maybe a little bit of the services then. I know you mentioned the 360. There's another one I have on here. I don't even really know how to pronounce it. Photogrammetry. That's what I was going to say, but I'm looking at it. It's a little different. So what is that?
So photogrammetry is kind of the basis of everything.
Okay.
So photogrammetry is, I think it's a science, to be honest, but it was actually started way back when photos were started.
Yeah.
And photogrammetry is stitching pictures together.
Okay.
The science of stitching pictures together, and you can take and using them to make measurements.
Oh.
So like when we go out and map something,
and
do our site 360 on something, we create 3D models and 2D maps of sites using photogrammetry. We're taking hundreds, sometimes thousands of pictures of a site. And then we have software that stitches it all together and creates models and maps that are like accurate to a few centimeters.
So is it kind of like just to give some context to the viewers, because I'm sure a lot of people haven't seen this. I haven't even seen this, but I'm sure when you go to some real estate websites, they have the walkthrough where it takes a bunch of pictures of the room and then stitches it together so you can kind of look around. Is it kind of that, but from the sky? It's
kind of that way. Yes. Those are, it would be almost exactly the same thing, but it's from the sky. And those aren't going to be like you can't take measurements in those as much because those are like our systems use RTK and all kinds of stuff, GPS, RTK GPS, to make it accurate. And I guess it's hard to explain, but without showing you,
because what are you guys measuring up there? Is it like you take a picture and it's like this many yards to the next thing, or are you measuring tiny, like it's 8 inches to this thing? Is it big measurements, small measurements, or both?
Well, the accuracy is more or less for the clients to put it in their GIS systems. So our maps, say your Google Maps, right?
Yep.
Google Maps are probably accurate to like 5 feet. These maps are accurate to like 3 centimeters.
Okay.
So they can go and measure the distance between like a tank and something else on an oil site.
Okay.
Right. And decide if, is there enough room to put like a new compressor in here or whatnot?
Okay. So it's like, there's 150 feet from the tank to the doghouse or whatever it is.
Yes.
Stuff like that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do that stuff. That's not typically what they're used for. They're typically used for design,
Okay.
or additions. So most of the time we go to a site, it's for, we'll go do this site 360 where we do the 3D model, the 2D map, and then we'll actually walk it with the 360 camera.
Okay.
So they can see absolutely everything on that site. No matter if it's inside or out.
So do you do sites that are empty ever, where it's like, hey, here's our plot of land. We need to design what this is going to look like with all of our equipment.
We have.
Okay.
We have. It's not usual, but we have.
Mhm.
And that's typically not like we don't go with the 360 cam and that. It's just a drone.
Yeah.
But yes, we have done that. It's not typical, but we have.
Yeah. Cause I was thinking like, if you're even going to do, I relate it back to if I was going to build a house and I bought a plot of land and I'm like, okay, well, I want a shed and I want a pool. Yep. I want the house in a 3-car garage. If you could throw it up in the air and okay, the lot's this big, this is where it's going to, and you could kind of trace it out.
Yep. And then we can also actually take their blueprints and put it right on top.
Oh, that's sweet.
And that happens. That's something we do for clients, just adding to typically.
Okay.
Like they'll have their old blueprints and their new blueprints and we put them on top of each other and we can see, okay, is this going to fit?
Yeah.
Whatnot. Yeah. We can do almost anything. And that's where the accuracy comes in.
So you talk about the accuracy, which is good. How do you, I assume this is something new that you guys started or relatively new. Like I'm not, I don't know, maybe is every oil company using this or is this?
They're starting to.
Yeah. So, how do you explain, it's kind of an intricate service and process that you guys go through. How are you explaining to these companies and people you're working with how it works and why they should be doing it?
It's easier to answer the why.
Okay.
The companies that we do work for, they save a ton of time in their engineering costs.
Okay.
It's like, for example, one of my the engineers that I do work for, he told me that when we do these site 360s, it cuts his time in the field probably saves him 5 trips.
Oh, wow. And you throw the drone and you guys just got to go up in the air one time. Yeah.
One time. So, and a lot of times the engineers don't work anywhere near the sites.
Yep.
So sometimes it's flights here.
Oh.
And sometimes it's just a whole day of driving, right? So we can save them tons. And that's just an install of one piece of equipment.
Yeah.
So we can save a ton of time and money on basically any project.
So that's kind of the selling point. It's like you don't have to get all your poop in a group to get out there on the oil site. Yeah.
Yep. And then, it's not just the single engineer too. A lot of times these projects have, probably 5 to 10 people involved in them, right? Well, now they can all have a meeting about that site from their house anywhere in the world because we can send all of this in a link.
Yeah. The old Zoom calls.
Yeah. So that's where COVID came in, where everybody migrated from the office to their homes and work.
Yeah.
Especially in engineering. A lot of these guys are either contracted and they're not in state.
Yep.
Or they're working from home a lot.
Okay.
Maybe 4 out of 5 days a week. Maybe they're working from home, right?
Yeah.
So now they don't got to go to the office to get what they're working on. They can look at it right now.
Okay. Yeah. That saves a ton of time.
Oh yeah.
That's got to be way better.
Ton of time. Probably our biggest client is XTO here.
Okay.
Out of, both Alexander and Wilson offices both use us, and they are really embracing it. A couple other companies, Enterplus out by Mandaree, they use it too. They actually have a drone program too, but our stuff is just quite a bit more accurate. So they use us.
And I think the people if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I've seen a drone. I don't know if you've seen the drone that Travis is flying, because you have the one that's like the size of this table, right?
Yeah. So if you look at the black marks here, that's going to be the wingspan.
Yeah. So they're not the small Mavics you're throwing around to shoot a residential property.
No,
they are big, and they got a camera hanging from like a neck underneath it.
Yeah.
And they're pretty beefy drones.
It's kind of drone that if you fly it in town, you get the cops called on you.
Yeah. Have you done that before?
Yeah, actually it happened in Fargo. It wasn't the cops. It was actually Life Flight that came out and had a fit.
Okay.
So there's a thing called LANIC. You can fly in restricted airspace in airspace that's dedicated for planes and landing.
Yeah.
If you get authorization,
you get clearance. Yeah.
Clearance. So Minot is terrible for this, because if you look at downtown where the airport is, it's quite a bit lower, right?
Yeah.
But you can't fly downtown hardly because
it's close to the airport.
Because it's close to the airport, and it's just a big. They basically make a big ring around it and say you can't fly from this, even though we're way lower than the airport. I mean, we're like 150, 200 feet, maybe, maybe more. I don't know.
Yeah.
So was in downtown Fargo, and I was next door to the Life Flight. I think it was Sanford Life Flight.
Okay.
Pad. And I was flying lower than the pad, and they came over and they had just a fit about it. And I'm showing them all my documentation and all that. And I'm like, this is why we don't do real estate.
Yeah. Hey, would you do my downtown building? No, I will not. No.
It's such a headache.
Yeah.
It's just a big headache. And
when all those oil sites are out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And that drone isn't made for in town. I mean, it's big. It makes a lot of noise.
Yeah.
It's just not made for it.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit more about drones in the oil and gas industry. But before we do that, we're going to hear from this week's sponsor, Midco. Is your business moving up and to the right? Put Midco's business technology to work for you so you never have a slow day at the office. From premium internet and phone plans to custom private networking and advertising, they have a solution for every type of business, large or small. Get paired with an account representative to create your suite of services and make the switch with ease with dedicated business client fulfillment and support teams. No data caps, flexible contracts with month-to-month or long-term options, built-in DDoS protection, and more. Explore services and request a free consultation at midco.com/business today. Okay, Travis, let's get back into the questions. So I want to talk about some of the projects you've worked on. I'm sure it was a challenge getting started. When you got started, were there any, unique challenges that popped up when you were going through your first couple projects? Anything you learned when you're doing this? Like, man, I didn't see this coming.
Yeah. Honestly, snow.
Oh yeah, I suppose.
So snow makes my job of creating these 3D models really hard, because you have out in the oil field, you have scoria. It's really red.
Okay.
And then you have snow. Well, you only have those two colors sometimes. So the contrast and all that stuff messes with the camera.
I suppose.
It makes a complete mess of everything. So where we could shoot 3D in the summer, fall, anytime else, that snow created a new challenge. So we had to work through that, because when we really started taking off was last fall.
Okay.
Right after our first snowfall. And so we're doing a lot of work now, and I'm building these 3D models, and I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
What is going on? And so I went and deep dove on YouTube and found some settings eventually that would work. And we got about 75% of what we wanted.
Okay.
But snow is really annoying with that.
It's a bad place to be if snow becomes an issue.
Yeah, but at the same time, we can create. A lot of times, our clients don't use the 3D part as much as like the walkthrough.
Okay.
To make decisions, because that's a camera on the ground basically.
Yeah.
So they can actually go back to the individual photos in these maps too.
Okay.
And figure stuff out. So the distortion happens because of the snow, but
Mm-hmm.
the pictures are still there, so they can figure it out.
Yeah.
But that really was hard when that started happening. It was hard on me because I'm kind of perfectionist on this stuff.
Yeah.
I pride myself on under promising and over delivering.
Yep.
Because that's just the way I think business should be done. And so that was a big struggle for me, but we're past that now. And this year it'll be easy.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite business things to live by is under promise and over deliver. Because if you say, okay, here's what we agreed to, here's what's on the contract, here's what you're going to get. But then at the end, if they get a couple extra things just as freebies, or you go the extra mile, I feel like it makes them feel, much more appreciated.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They got their money's worth. Like they look at that and they're like, oh, that didn't cost anything.
Yeah. We didn't have to pay for this.
Yeah.
And it's not like we're trying to trick them into it. It's just the nice thing to do at the end of the day. If you really do appreciate your clients, it's good to go the extra mile for them.
Absolutely. Yep. It is.
So then the 360 camera on the ground, are you just using like an Insta 360?
It's actually, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Insta 360. We used to use GoPro.
Yeah.
Both are fine. The Insta 360 actually works with my software better.
Okay.
So we use that. And we walk the site and then you can spin and see everything you want. It's basically like your Google Street View on steroids.
Yeah.
So, and then we can also put pictures in too. So if they want like a electrical panel, they want all the specs on the electrical panel, we can put that in there too if we want.
Okay.
With our phone.
Yeah.
Right. So they can make design decisions on anything from anywhere.
So how did you, I guess, going back into when you first started doing it and you first offered this service, how did you get the word out there that this is something to do? Did you just call some of the contacts you had in the oil and gas industry and say, hey, I'm doing this thing?
Yeah. So super uncomfortable thing to do, but it pretty much is ground pounding.
Yep.
Knocking on doors, calling people that you don't know, and doing the old sales calls, right?
Oh yeah.
If you're 1 for 10, you're doing really good.
Oh, if you could close 10% of people on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably more like 1 for 50, but
yeah.
All you need though is to get that first client. And honestly, the best way I did that was demos.
Okay.
I did free demos.
Just like, spec work.
Because if you do a free demo, you own that, right?
Yeah.
So then you can use that later for new clients.
Yeah.
And that's how we did that.
Like a portfolio piece.
Yeah. It's a portfolio piece.
Yeah. And
so now you have data that you can show somebody else. That's like, hey, this is what we do. And this is how it can help you. And they look at that and they're like, well, can you do this?
Yeah.
And so we add to things. And so our
like
clients,
we can now.
honestly, our clients help build the whole Site 360 service, to be honest.
So Site 360 was just something they were kind of asking for. And then you said, okay, we can do this. Yeah.
It was a combination of what we did and what they're like, hey, it'd be cool if we could put this in there. And I'm like, yeah, we can.
Yeah. So that's cool. You're almost taking feedback from your initial clients.
Yeah. And it's funny because when we started Unmanned Operator, the goal was actually just to do pipeline work.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of pipelines, obviously. And that's what a lot of drone business, or that's what I started the business on as kind of the need for drones in pipelines. Yeah. We don't do that much pipeline work. We do this instead because this has a greater value.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause what do you do for pipelines then? Is it kind of the same thing where you're taking measurements or?
Yeah. Pipelines is a little bit different. So pipelines, you would be flying them to inspect them, but more or less mapping them.
Okay.
Basically you map them and send them the map and they're like, and our mapping is basically you can trace the ground and see if anything's falling in. They call them subsidences.
Okay.
Or if there's a spill coming out of the ground, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
Or for environmental things like say they seeded it last year and it didn't come in.
Okay.
They want to look for that. Right.
Yeah.
So that's where we thought our best market was, but it really wasn't.
Yeah. So what would you say advice then for someone maybe going into business thinking like this is where we're going to go and then pivoting to something else that's more valuable? That's what you did.
The best advice I ever got in business, and it's not necessarily an answer to that question, but it's do shit that scares you.
Oh yeah.
Because honestly, those are the best. The outcomes of the things that scared me helped me the most in business.
Yeah. And you can't move the needle without getting out of your comfort zone.
No.
Even if you go back to, phone calls, calling people. I remember in the beginning when I was doing video work, I'd reach out to a bunch of people that I semi knew that had some correlation to Bismarck, or not Bismarck, but business. And I said, there was a couple Bismarck people actually, but I reached out and said, can I do a video? I just try to get my foot in the door.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I reached out to over 100 people, maybe 3, 4, 5 of them said yes, but that's what got me going to getting those clients and those portfolio pieces.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing too, to go along with that is you have to be able to take a no.
Yeah.
You can't ever let that get to you, because you're always going to hear no.
You're probably going to hear more than you're going to hear
yes.
You
are, but you can sometimes turn the no into yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that has happened.
You got
in my business.
Is it more so the education part when they say no, they're just not educated enough? Because I've found that when I have sales calls or strategy calls, whatever it is, the reason people don't pull the trigger on making a decision to move forward with a video campaign or creating new content for a website or whatever it is because they just have a lack of information and there's some uncertainty somewhere. Whereas if you provide them more information, you can, like you said, maybe move that no to a yes.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just not the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's just, they thought we were a typical drone company. We're just going to come out and take pictures and give them an SD card.
Yep.
That's not what we do.
Yeah. And once you start to educate them, we're going to do 3D models and we'll give you a 360 walkthrough. That's when they're like, oh, okay, maybe my no is not a no anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's been kind of fun. Those no's don't turn into yeses overnight though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you're usually weeks, months down the road.
You've got to nurture those clients.
Yeah.
That's one thing that people always say, it comes back to relationship building.
Mm-hmm.
And I never really realized that until, I talked to someone about a video project. It didn't work. Talked to them 6 months later. They wanted to do it. Didn't work. And then a year after that, they're like, okay, we're going to do it. Whereas if I had just taken that first no, it's not going to work, and then never talked to him again, I never would have got that job. So it does take, you never know how long a job's going to take. Has that ever happened to you, drone stuff?
Not
yet.
Not yet.
We'll get there.
Going back to nurturing relationships, though, I got a funny story about that. So we have a sister company called Grant Services.
Okay.
They're roustabouts. And the guy that kind of runs the environmental side of that, he actually baked all of his clients apple pies last Christmas.
Really?
We might do that. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, that's for my clients listening. Actually, I'm not going to say it. I won't spoil it on there. But I'm doing Christmas gifts this year.
Yeah.
To give out to people, and I think it's just something. It's nice to do, especially if people, businesses, if they're paying you money
mm-hmm.
and they're providing to your well-being and your family, whatever it might be. It's nice to give back to them even a little bit, even if it is an apple pie that might cost them $8 to make.
Yeah. Yeah. I just thought it was hilarious. But what's funny is he probably got a couple $100,000 worth of work because of that.
Yeah. Just from apple pies.
Just from apple pies.
Yep. And that's what people care about. People care about people that care about you. So like Travis, if, 2 months from now you came in, you're like, oh, I took a photo of your house. Well, threw my drone in the air, got a cool photo of your house or whatever it is. And you're like, here it is. Then I'm going to think in my head, I'm like, oh, that was cool. That was nice of him. And then down the road, you're the guy to call, right? Yep. Where that relationship building is super important.
Yep. We did a lot of that stuff.
So there's one story I actually heard, Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't know if you know who he is, but he owns VaynerMedia, and he started Wine Library, which is like this big wine company in New York for his dad. And someone ordered a bottle of wine, And he found out this guy on Facebook, found out he was like a Bears fan. So he sent him his bottle of wine in the mail. He also sent him a signed Chicago Bears jersey and said, "Hey, thank you for your bottle of wine. Appreciate the order." Sent it to him. Didn't hear back from the guy ever. And he was kind of starting to get pissed. He's like, "I can't believe I sent that guy a jersey. I didn't even get a thank you." You know, he didn't ever say anything about it. He said like 13 months later, some guy ordered like 45 cases of wine, a different guy, and said, "Hey, I heard about your company from my buddy. And he said, you guys have great wine. You sent him a Chicago Bears jersey, so I figured we'd go with you for our wine."
Yeah.
And at the end, he said, "And also, I'm a New York Jets fan." so he was like, "Go ahead and send me a gift." But that just goes to show down the road, even if you might not get instant gratification, you never know down the road what relationship will turn into.
Yeah. A lot of times when I do these, when we do these mapping flights and we're in like a really cool area, I will take a picture and send it to the guy that ordered it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, but it's just kind of, and sometimes actually the first guy that actually helped us out getting it started over at XTO, I sent him one. The pad was called a Teddy, and it was basically on the edge of, basically the edge dropped off like 300 feet.
Oh,
It
really?
was just a really cool area. And I sent him a picture, and he, like 3 months later, we were having a Zoom meeting, and his background was my picture.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
He's like, "Yeah, I love that thing."
That's it. And it's little things like that get people to, stop and think, oh, they might subconsciously think, okay, I enjoy working with him. They might not obviously go ahead, "Oh, thank you, I'm going to give you work in the future for this." But subconsciously, it's going to help down the road if something does come up.
Oh, yeah.
So you said you worked in oil and gas for 10 years and then you moved to the drones. Have you seen the oil and gas industry now evolve now that this service is where it's at and it's available?
So we are seeing a lot more people embrace drones. Even in the last year, from we'll say October, when we really started to take off till now, we're probably twice as, I don't even know how you say it. We're probably twice more likely to get interest from an oil company than last year.
Okay.
Even though we're doing the exact same thing, but companies up here are typically taking orders from wherever their bases are. So typically like the Houston area.
Okay.
And drones are being used a lot more down south.
Yeah.
So we're here now, and companies are like, "Hey, we have a drone program down there and we have software to deal with it now. Can you come fly for us?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great for us.
So do you travel down to Houston then and other places in the South?
We do have something scheduled to go south.
Okay.
Later this year, maybe into early next year.
Okay.
But not positive yet on that.
Yeah.
We will be down there eventually though.
How do you fly with a drone of that size?
You can't fly.
You drive?
Yeah, you have to.
It's just you can't.
The batteries on the thing are, they're as long as your tablet here.
Yeah.
And they weigh like 3 pounds a piece. You got like 8 of them, and you cannot fly with them. It's not possible. So
maybe this is a selfish question, but I'm sure people would enjoy hearing it too. What is a drone, if you don't mind sharing, what does a drone like that cost?
You think about what pickups cost now, it's probably half of that.
Oh, wow.
With one camera.
Yeah. Do you have drones with multiple cameras, or how many drones do you have? Just one?
So we have a couple drones.
Okay.
But, most of the extra ones are just backups.
Mm-hmm.
They're there for marketing purposes, maybe.
Yeah.
But our main drone, which is it's called an M300, that will actually take like a full 35 millimeter camera on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we're shooting right there. That's a super 35 millimeter camera.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah, exactly. And so just the cameras alone, they're usually right around $10,000.
Yeah.
But your camera and then the gimbal, which stabilizes it.
Yep.
And then most of the time they're semi-waterproof. But yeah, your equipment, all that. And then you have your RTK system, which is your
GPS. Right?
That's another $3,500 at least.
Yeah.
But all of it comes together to create these things. So you have to have it.
Yeah.
You can make these 3D models without it, but your accuracy goes from like centimeters to like 1.5 feet.
Yeah. Which you can't have.
Well, you can, if they're not using it for like GIS systems.
Yeah. Okay.
But the nice thing about the drone we have too is that we can fly to like right below zero.
Okay.
And then 40-mile-an-hour winds.
Have you ever crashed one?
I've crashed other drones than this one.
Not the M30. Is that what you said it was?
M300.
M300. Yeah.
I've broken props in the air and it still hasn't crashed.
Okay, but you've never like flown into a tree or anything.
No, I don't know if it would let me.
Does it have obstacle avoidance?
Yeah, it has like, I think it's like 18 or 20 cameras all the way around it.
Okay.
So it like
making sure you don't hit stuff.
Like if you take off and you walk towards it, it will move.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't know if you could intentionally crash unless you put it in like sport mode where it turns all those off.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you could.
How did you get good at flying the drone? Just a lot of practice, or did you do any simulator work?
No. I love video games.
Yep.
So that's kind of helps.
So you knew, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say even when I was flying my drone for fun when I first got it, the controller just felt normal because I grew up playing Xbox and PlayStation 2 and all that stuff.
Yeah. So the Xbox controller and the controller I have are very similar.
Okay.
So you just have to basically when I go out to shoot like say a video, I get there like 30 minutes early and I go and play with my sticks, make sure all my settings are good because every time you update that thing, it resets everything.
Oh, really?
Which is awful.
Yeah.
But so
who's the manufacturer?
It's DJI.
DJI.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. But yeah, that you just have to practice. That's all it is. Because if you think about it, you're moving 2 sticks, and with our drone, we can have pitching up and down with our gimbal and side to side at the same time.
Oh yeah.
So you're doing 4 motions at once sometimes.
Because I suppose you got to move the drone,
and
then you got to move the camera, and each of them have 2 directions.
Yes.
Well, I suppose the drone can go up, down, left, right, forward, back. That's like 6 different ways.
Yeah, or banking one.
I suppose.
And so you're
start calling you Sully. You could land on the Hudson.
It's a lot of time and practice, but it's fun.
Yeah.
There is nothing better when you're shooting video than like when you get done with shooting a shot that you only have like maybe 1 chance at.
Yep.
And you're like, God, I just nailed that.
And you nailed it. Yeah. It's the best feeling.
Yeah,
and you look and you're like, man, that's a portfolio shot right there.
Yeah.
All right. So if we look ahead a little bit, then what's on the horizon for Unmanned Operator? What's coming in the future? Anything that you're implementing or anything you want to do?
Next year we might be doing more egg stuff.
Like what?
We're looking into spray drones.
Okay.
There's a whole process with the FAA to deal with that.
Yeah.
They're making it easier, so we haven't jumped that yet. We're also going to, we're also looking at getting drone in a box for some of these companies.
What's that?
Basically, it's also kind of down the road because regulations, but if a company were to come to us and say, hey, we want our field employees, say an oil company, to be able to have more time fixing stuff, whatever, and we could have a drone box out there, literally in a drone in a box that opens, like a safe.
Okay.
And that thing could go around and make sure no spills are happening, everything's running, all that stuff autonomously.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that is in the future. Long range, like beyond visual line of sight stuff.
Okay.
For pipelines and stuff.
They say like over to Iraq or
I don't know. No, we're talking like, you can fly some of these drones down a pipeline, and instead of going like 1.5 miles where you can see it.
Yeah.
Like 10, 15 miles at a time.
Yeah. That's better. You wouldn't have to drive to every site. You're like, just throw it in the air. I'll get it. What about like package delivery? You ever want to partner up with Amazon and drop some packages off some doors?
It'd be kind of fun.
That would be cool.
It'd be kind of fun. I don't know. The liabilities in aviation are just like
ridiculous.
Yeah. We're seeing this with some like pipeline companies. They're treating like drones as like a fixed wing plane, and they're wanting a crazy amount of money for us to go work for them. It's like, it's not worth it for us.
Yeah.
But so I don't know if, and most of this like drone stuff is happening on the eastern part of the state.
Okay.
Like there's a huge government private partnership going on over there, and we get to see all that. We're on the North Dakota UAS committee.
Okay.
Which meets in Grand Forks every once in a while.
And that stands for Unmanned Air Service? Unmanned, is that what it is? UAS?
Yeah, it's called, I think they renamed it Uncrewed.
Okay.
Aerial Systems.
Okay, gotcha.
It used to be unmanned. Now it's uncrewed. Not sure why. But
that'd be politically correct.
Yeah. So we get to go on that committee with like, I mean, there's like Lockheed Martin's on that one. And all,
really?
Oh, it's crazy. I forget what his name is, but he's a government guy out of Bismarck. He was sitting next to me at the first meeting we had, and he's like, "So how'd you find yourself in this room?" I said, "I have no idea."
Not sure, honestly. Just kind of snuck my way in here.
I was kind of scared in that meeting because I'm like, I am not probably supposed to be here, but I am.
Hey, you gotta fake it till you make it.
That's
right?
Exactly right.
Yeah. So, last couple questions I got here for you. Then you're a listener to the show. You know it's coming.
Yeah.
Mount Rushmore business advice. You got 4 pieces of advice. What would you say?
Well, I think I said it earlier, but do shit that scares you. And never always use your clients to better your product.
Okay.
Because they sometimes might have a better idea of what is needed than you do.
Because they're in the business to the day to day.
Yeah. So you might think that your product's going to be really, really good for them, and they might have all these ideas. Never like throw those out the door, because that might start like a snowball that just keeps going for you. And that's kind of where we're at, honestly. Like our clients basically built our service.
Yeah. Like you said, when they were like, "Oh, can we do 360?" And you're like, "Yes, we can."
Yeah. Yeah. It's really cool to have your own business, but it's hard, and you have to be able to take no for an answer.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And you never.
How do you get to the point of being okay with that?
You have to. I don't know.
Repetition. That's what I'd say. If, you just got to hear enough no's where they just don't phase you.
Yeah. Yeah. You just got to think of it as a learning experience, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
What did I do wrong here? Is there something I did wrong, or maybe they're just not ready?
Yeah.
Right. And then you have to move on to the next project, because you can't dwell on it.
And I don't think you can take it personal.
No.
Like the no's, it's not like someone's out to get you and they want to say no, just like make you feel bad.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's a personal reason for them. No, because it's not the right time, or no, we don't have the budget for that right now, or no, because there's snow on the ground. We want to do it when there's no snow. The no's are generally on the client's side, the reasoning.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing is, once you're in business, you have to really watch what you say on social media yourself, your personal accounts, right?
Yeah.
Because that can really kill you.
They can come back and find you.
Oh yeah. And so like for me, my personal accounts are just dead, because I don't post on them, because I don't want anybody taking offense to, because that could make a no somewhere else.
Yep.
Right. So now my social media is just work.
Yeah. You are now the unmanned operator.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Well, those are 4 good ones. Travis, where can people, stay updated with what you guys are doing, the projects you're working on, or if they want to reach out to you?
I think our Instagram is UO Drones. You can find us on LinkedIn too. Twitter, we don't really use that much because it's not, it doesn't really serve our purpose. But we do have a TikTok. It'll start getting updated more now. Our website is www.unmanned-operator.com. And you can reach out to us there. I guess that's all.
Yeah. Or reach out to me and I'll get you in contact with Travis if you can't figure out, but go to those links first, as sometimes I'm not the most reliable. Travis, thank you. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Glad to be here.
That was episode 60. What episode was that? 62, guys. That was episode 62 of the Minot Business Podcast. We appreciate you listening. Again, don't forget to rate and review the show, and we will catch you next week for episode 63.